Khawateen Hazrat, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. I'm going to take 20 minutes talking about the challenges that we see as a result of this digital wave that we are currently experiencing. And this digital wave will increase given our youth cohort. We are one of the few countries in the world which have 65% of our population under 35. And these people who are now entering the world of commerce are raised on the digital technology rather than the conventional technology. I'd like to thank EastNet and I'd like to thank Dellsons for inviting me, but at the same time for hosting this particular seminar. Siraj Saab told me that they used to call it the Financial Crime Summit, and we weren't here. We were talking about prevention of financial crime summit rather than a summit for financial crime. But I think, as I see, the house is full, and most of my colleagues are here from commercial banks. So I cannot help myself but narrate a verse that I've created for you. I'm sure your CEOs will love me more than they do right now after this particular verse. And with apologies, it's in Urdu. You know, we are the only country where branches are increasing, not decreasing. Last year, हमारी branch network तकरीबन 300 branches से बढ़ी है. इस साल हमारी profitability banking sector की compared to last year increased by 97%. उसकी एक वजह है, तो I'm going to talk about that, then I'm going to get on with this. My team will hate me for this, but I can't help myself. वो शेर है सलीम रज़ा साहब के वालिद का, जो मैंने थोड़ा change किया है. And the शेर goes, क्यों कर संभालते हमें वो कमर्शियल बैंक्स जो खुद टी बिल्स के नशे में गोल्फ खेलते रहे. मंजिल की राह में, फाइनेंशियल इंक्लूजन की राह में डिजिटल बैंक्स उठ खड़े हुए और कमर्शियल बैंक्स गुबारे सफ़र देखते रहे. सो इट्स अ चैलेंज टू यू. आई होप वी कैन वर्क टुगेदर एंड help educate the general Pakistani public with regards to social engineering fraud. जब मेरी टीम में और मैंने इजी पैसा लॉन्च किया, दिस इज़ अबाउट 11 years ago, तो हमारा जो सबसे कॉमन ट्रांजैक्शन था जिसकी वजह से इजी पैसा की इतनी मकबूलियत हुई, वो था डोमेस्टिक रेमिटेंस. यू कुड गो टू ए किराना स्टोर, गिव योर CNIC, the CNIC of the beneficiary, the phone number of the beneficiary, and give a 6-digit password that you would give to your beneficiary so this amount could be collected. Now, truly this was the first financial revolution in Pakistan. A revolution is defined as millions of people changing their behavior. And Easy Paisa's domestic remittance product changed customer behavior. At one time, Easy Paisa moved 6% of Pakistan's GDP on domestic remittance. लेकिन मैं आपसे ये शेयर क्यों कर रहा हूँ? क्योंकि जो पासवर्ड, the 6-digit password, and remember, 90% of the people using this service were people from the bottom of the pyramid who had a feature phone, not a smartphone. BVS did not exist at that time. तो जब वो जाता था रिटेलर के पास, रिटेलर कहता था उससे कि भाई यार 6 डिजिट का पासवर्ड डालो, तो रिटेलर को फ़ोन दे कहता आप खुद डाल दें. Because this was the behavior change. We had not educated a customer. The customer used to tell the agent, please put in the password yourself. और पासवर्ड क्या होता था? 1 2 3 4 5 6. Okay, because that's the most convenient one. So it was incumbent on us to train the customer to not hand his phone over to the retailer to enter the password and use a password other than 1 2 3 4 5 6. Because as you create this digital wave, the general Pakistani, at least at that time, talking about 11 years ago, was not that smart that password doesn't need to be shared and password need to have some level of complexity. अच्छा, इससे हालात बहुत ज़्यादा चेंज नहीं हुए हैं. So when I talk about social engineering fraud, I'm going to talk about two lenses. The first lens is, what are we as financial institutions doing to protect ourselves as financial institutions from cybercrime, from social engineering fraud? And my view is, more important than any software, cutting edge software driven by AI, driven by blockchain, is the culture we create within the bank about security. If you don't create that culture where you have multiple passwords which are shared, where you have laxness about who is accessing what information, you can have the most powerful software, but you're opening yourself up to potential financial fraud, financial engineering fraud within the institution. So it's my experience is that if we don't create the culture, the rigor, the change in passwords, simple things within the institutions itself, then it gets more and more difficult for you to protect your customers, because there is an element of people who have made it an industry just to just to leverage this gap between the general public understanding and the need to do transactions, in a faster, efficient manner. We've heard of Pakistani banks' information available in the dark web. We've heard recently of Nadra information available in the dark web. So are we as an industry spending enough time, spending enough resources, changing the culture and getting the most current software that needs to be installed, because there are generational gaps between the technology that used to be available and is available? And I would suspect not. We don't provide enough focus on this particular aspect as we should as an industry. KYC, AML, yes, because the state bank hits you with fine, you get foreign fines as well. I'm talking about financial fraud. How much money are we spending? How much training are we doing inside? And how much, I would say, ethical hacking are we employing to make sure that we are protected? My sense is that the information we have in customers is still compromised. We don't have enough security around it as we should. And the culture that we have ourselves. It's great to have 150 people in your compliance department. Nothing good, nothing bad about that. But how much protection are you providing? There is also a balance between the customer journey and the blocks and the various levels of defense you put against that. So if it's taking you 40 days to open a private limited company account, then there's something wrong in the architecture we have. We've got to be able to figure to do that within the compliance the regulator sets, but 40 days for me is just madness. So coming back, what we are seeing in Pakistan, the last State Bank publication that came out basically said the number of digital transactions using apps, using internet banking, exceeded the number of paper transactions, meaning cash in, cash out at banks or ATM, or paper-based transactions such as checks for the first time. So at least in the industry which is using financial services, we're seeing more and more transactions being done digitally. This is just the banking side. But remember, this youth cohort and all of us post-COVID have become more reliant on digital transactions, whether you're ordering your food, whether you're ordering e-commerce available activities online, whatever you're doing, you're trying to do now digitally as opposed to physically. But the reality is that we're a cash society. 7.5 trillion rupees in circulation, 35% of our total money printed is in circulation. And digital transactions, in my estimate, are still less than 1% of total transactions taking place in the world of cash. Now, how we bring that cash into our digital world is something that would we need assistance from the government, from the FBR and the state bank. It's a big behavior change. Cash is free, digital is taxed. And how do you change a behavior when something on the face of it becomes more expensive, although cash is the most expensive way of doing a transaction? So the first point I'm making is that we as an industry are not doing enough internally to create the culture we need, to have the best software, the training, and most importantly, the customer awareness for digital fraud, which is taking place and will take place. So we've just got a license for one of the 5 digital banks, Planet and myself. In my first meeting to the board, I said, they have asked me to give a sense of the risk that a digital bank will face. Remember, we have no physical presence, and all our interactions with the customers are going to be through our app or through our call center or through our partners, which we are going to be working with. So liquidity is something that we talked about. How are you going to generate enough liquidity without a branch network? And I think we have a solution that over time, liquidity will not be a risk. It remains a risk, but a controlled risk. The second point was, how are you going to lend in a world where inflation is hovering between 30 and 35%? And we've come up with products which are granular, small ticket size, small tenor, purpose-made. So that means you're providing goods, not money, and I think we'll manage the credit risk. The number one risk that I felt digital banks will face, and certainly Raqami Islamic will face, is cybercrime, hacking, and financial fraud. Because as we embark on this journey, the customers that we have, especially the unbanked, the total banking industry, all you guys sitting over here, unless you include microfinance bank, have only 2.1 million active loan customers. That's it. 2.1 million active loan customers between credit card, mortgages, personal loans, and autos. So there's a huge 30, 40 million amount of customers that are available in the market that we can go after, and certainly we'll go after. Microfinance banks have a total active customer base of 8.5, so the total country customer base is about $12 million. 12 million people in a country of 220 million people. So it's huge number of customers sitting outside. Now, when you're going to onboard them, how are we going to compete with banks like yourself, which have branches, which have great brands, which have low cost of funds? It can only be through the customer journey and the ability to lend. So the customer journey, my friends, especially from banks which have a banking license but are a technology company, is not based on the front-end app. That's 10% of what you do. 90% is on your back office automation. Unless you automate your back office, your decisions are driven by AI, your AML, KYC is automated, you can't change your customer journey. And that's how we expect to compete, that we're going to do a account opening like you do in 1 minute, Aadhaar account in 2 minutes, a private company account opening in a day, and a new to industry lending in 10 minutes. New to industry, not a cross-sell, upsell to existing customer. Now, when you do that, financial fraud comes in because you're creating this huge efficiency. Your time that you're taking to actually check a customer, AY, KYC, AML, sanctions list, everything else, plus fraud. And our experience, in Planet N, we had the first company that started doing nano loans was using AI. How many apps do you have in your account? Have you recently changed your phone? AI tells you the behavior when you start using these customers. But as we increase financial penetration, as we increase our digital interface, there is an industry out there which is going to defraud you. And you're seeing this in your neighboring country in India. People are not aware how important their password is. So, there are 4 big ways we are seeing. We saw in Easy Paisa, we're seeing right now in the world of e-commerce where people's password is easily compromised. The first thing is very simple. I call I use your MSDN and I do a transaction at Daraz. I know who the cell phone number is. There's an OTP created, and I call the customer and I said, "Ji, I use every possible way to extract that OTP." And this OTP extraction is very easy, people. From school teachers to professors to serving generals to everybody in the industry, there are means and mechanisms of basically giving you false information and extracting that OTP, and my transaction is now complete. And this is what we are seeing in scale in neighboring countries. How to protect your customer only by awareness, otherwise that OTP is compromised. There's a lot of masking going on in Pakistan. You receive a call from a legitimate number that looks like coming from your bank or a law enforcement agency which says, this is your card details, and they have some card details which they've gathered from the dark net, and then they're asking you to confirm your password in many different ways. People see that a legit call because lack of awareness. And these are information being provided by educated people, not your drivers, not your maids, but people who have college degrees, people who have 15, 20 years of banking experience as well. When you see that call coming from a legit number, you assume that's your banker asking for your password information, password expiry, number on the back of your card. Then we have data being compromised through call centers. When you're calling a call center, you've told every time, don't give your password, don't give your password, but people who are looking to do this get compromised by providing passwords when the normal course of transaction is taking place. You also have compromising taking place at retailers at the BVS time. When you're giving your BVS, that same BVS is then used by them for conducting fraudulent transactions. Now, these are just 4 examples of where I see challenges for a digital bank and for a commercial bank as you embark on this digital world. So the takeaway essentially is we've got to invest a lot more in making our customers aware of these simple processes, how important an OTP or a password is. And we are doing that, but we need to do a lot more because the number of digital transactions are increasing and will continue to increase. They're not going to decrease. So as we embark on this and further enhance our digital journey, we need to educate our customers. We need to have a budget which we set aside just for education of the customers. We need to have a balance between the amount of defenses we put up, the OTPs we put up, two-factor authentication we put up, whatever we put up, versus the customer journey. If you're going to have, an inordinate customer journey, you're not going to get the uptake. People will go back to cash. The reason people did Easy Paisa was an Easy Paisa charged 6 times what the post office was charging because it was convenience. You could go to your local store at 11 o'clock at night. It was secure because the State Bank was behind that transaction. So people are willing to pay the price if they think the value is there. But if you have convoluted customer journeys, then this digital transformation we are looking for will happen, but it will get slowed down considerably. We have countries which have had huge success in digital transformation, and we need to be able to borrow the best practices from there. And I'm sure through the course of the day today, you'll see many best practices that we need to embrace. And third thing is we need to train ourselves and we need to practice what we preach. If we are talking to the customer about compromising of passwords, compromising of other personal information within the institution itself, how rigorously are you changing your password? Very simple thing. One of the largest local transportation company was compromised through a simple password they had given to a third-party vendor who got in through the system. So the people who are out there are very savvy. They're educating themselves. They are exchanging information, and they're going to keep testing you. And we need to be prepared for that because we are responsible. The State Bank has a very clear view. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. They are holding the commercial banks responsible for any fraud that takes place, even if the password is compromised by the customer. That's their view. They say, educate your customer and you are responsible. Now, that's harsh, but initially, I think it may be the best way to force us to do what we need to do. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I think we have a very exciting day. I think this is a great time to have these kind of conferences because we need to educate ourselves and see how we're going to educate a customer. And I'm going to stop with another verse from Iqbal, and this time I'm not going to plagiarize it. So Iqbal says, हम खुद तराशते हैं मनाजिल के संगे मील, हम वो नहीं हैं जिनको ज़माना बना गया. Thank you.